Hello, all, and welcome to the 11th episode of Data Pancakes. Super happy and excited to have you back. I would like to take a moment to thank all our subscribers because we have reached the first feat of 1,000 subscribers for our YouTube channel. We are super grateful and indebted to all our viewers and subscribers. That said, I'd like to get into the content for this episode. We discussed about what is a data product, what are the three different definitions of the data product. We got into the pros and cons of each of them. If we do a quick recap, the first definition was about how Zomag had described it in her book. So we talked about the infrastructure, the metadata, and the items being represented as a data product. The second definition of the data product, as we took it, was from Accenture, where we defined different items. Could be a notebook, could be a data set, or it could be, for instance, a lakehouse, which could be defined as a particular product. The third definition which we took was best of both breeds. So we saw how metadata as well as the items themselves could be bundled into a logical grouping, which is much more, we would say, business friendly in that sense to define a data product. We also looked at how Microsoft went in that direction where we had Microsoft Purview implementing a similar concept of data products. That's using the third definition of data product. Next, what we are going to do today is going back, we are going to show you how this is practically implemented using Microsoft Fabric and Microsoft Purview. So we are going to walk through how the data is coming in from your OLTP systems into the raw layer or the bronze layer within Microsoft Fabric. We are going to briefly touch upon the concept of medallion architecture. So we'll see in practice how the data is coming in from your OLTP systems into the bronze layer, being transformed into the silver layer, and in the third layer, which is your gold layer, that's where the data products are being exposed. So there's basically meaningful data which is available in the gold layer, which is termed as a data product, which is ready for consumption. We would see how this is translated from the physical layer, where the data is actually in a lake house inside Fabric, moving onto the logical layer, and then the business layer within Microsoft Purview. We are going to see this demo and show you how this works in action. So as you can see, we are on the home page of Microsoft Fabric. Today we are going to see how we are going to create a data product for our fictitious airline company called Oceanic Airlines. So the first thing I would do is inside my Fabric portal, I would go into my admin portal where I could see all my business domains. So once we get into the domains, we see that there are all the business domains which have been defined here. Today we are going to talk about air flights operations management and how a data product is going to be created within this particular domain. So if I click on my air flights operations management, I can see that there are different workspaces associated with this particular domain. So let's flip back to our workspaces. You can see I have my AOM Arrivals Team 1, which is the team responsible for creation of the AirOps data product. So if I get into my workspace, what I would see there is I have different folder structures, right? So I have a folder corresponding to each medallion zone, which is basically the bronze, silver, and gold. So my bronze data consists of raw data sets. So that's basically representing the data as it's coming from my OLTP system. I have a notebook which cleans this data and moves. That's mostly the technical data quality checks. They are done and they are moving my data from my bronze layer into my silver zone. The silver folder, as you can see, consists of more cleaned data, and then we have a data flow Gen 2, which is taking that clean data and moving it into the gold layer, which is data representative for business consumption. So if you look at the gold layer, we have data products defined there. There's a notebook which is there, which converts this into a data product, which is consumable for business. And as you can see, it's called AirOps Insight. So this is the physical data product which has been created inside my Go layer. Going back to my workspace, we saw one approach where we defined, for example, folders, with each folder corresponding to a medallion architecture. You could also do a different approach. You could go for defining each workspace based on each layer of the medallion architecture. So you can have a bronze, silver, and gold workspace, and this is usually done to have more security, to make sure that you are isolating different workspaces and making sure that there are walls between these workspaces and they are not violated. Now we have seen how a data product has been created on the physical layer inside Microsoft Fabric. The next part of the demo is going to be on how this data product, which is on the physical layer, is transitioning through the logical layer into the business layer so that it can be used by business. For that, I'd like to pass it back to Pete High.
Thanks, Gerald, for passing it over to me. I will do the data product creation now using Microsoft Purview, our end-to-end data governance solution. And for that, it's important maybe to discuss two different things. So on one hand, we need to ensure that we collect the technical metadata from Microsoft Fabric and we store and manage that in our collections. And then next, we will use that collection metadata in order to create in the business experience a real data product. So let me show the collection part first. So here we have Purview here on the screen. And when I head over to data map, this is all the metadata about our data assets. So the physical databases, sources, um, information about the workspaces, for instance, in Fabric. So you see here the collection structure I've created. And this structure more or less also aligns with the different business domains, although it's a technical viewpoint. So you see the air flight operations domain, and within I've decided for collection for collecting all metadata from our usual applications, so the operational source systems, for instance, as well data from our data platform. And I've even decided in here to set up a structure that more or less aligns also with the medallion architecture, so bronze, silver, and gold you see within here. Well, next we need to scan metadata from Microsoft Fabric. So how that works is you click here on data sources on the left, and you need to register that new service. I've already done that, and I've collected Fabric here to the root collection. So that's the upper, so the highest item in the hierarchy. But that means all metadata will be initially stored and landed in this root collection. However, you could also decide for scoped scans. So how that works is you click on here, new scan, you give the scan a name, you select the target collection. So assume we would like to scan one workspace and store all of that metadata into a different collection. I could select that collection up here, test the connection, see if that works. Yeah, that works. Now I can click here, yes, the scope scan, and let me click here only the workspace I would like to scan. Hit select. You could create a schedule, and this is really nice. So every month, for instance, you could scan all of that metadata, and then it will automatically, because if you save this scan, it will automatically scan only just that workspace, and it will map it to that collection. But now I hit just once. I continue and save run. We need to wait for a few minutes, so I will be back within a glimpse. Okay, I'm back and we completed the scan. And like you can see over here, we have now moved and stored all of the asset information into the data domain collection. But remember, so Sarat demoed the workspace that includes both the bronze, silver, and gold layers. So all of that metadata now sits in one collection. So you could say, well, this is not ideal. So there are different approaches here you could follow. So on one hand, you could decide for in Fabric, like Sarat explained, go for an approach where you have multiple workspaces and you align each workspace with a layer, and then you set up the scanning in Purview accordingly. So each scoped scan, you select a workspace and you map that to one single collection, and the names should match consequently. Or, yeah, and which I will show you in a minute, we will move this metadata across. For that, I've developed a tiny web application myself. I've hosted this on GitHub. It's called Purview Bulk Collection Mover, and it's basically a simple app that reads from the API, shows all metadata, and then allows you to quickly move all of that metadata. So if I show it here, for instance, now we see all of the metadata that we have collected. So say you have one workspace mapped into one collection, but from there you would like to distribute it further over different collections, you could use this app. So here you see all metadata and you can start typing in. So filtering here, for instance, so I type in gold and now it looks up and it selected all of the matching items. I can select all of these and then decide for, well, let's move this to our gold layer. I press this move button, takes 1 second. And like you see here now, what we did basically, we moved all of this metadata from first initially that collection that shared all of the metadata from these different layers to different collections describing only essential information about each individual layer. And this is quite useful, especially when you would like to enforce that certain business users only create data products from certain assets being hosted in one of these different layers. So let me take a break and then switch to the data product creation part. Okay, I've moved all of that metadata from the initially shared collection structure towards more the individual collections you see up here. So now in the gold layer, like we have done, so we have moved that metadata. So I have 18 assets here, and those belong to that workspace in Fabric. So basically, we're now done at least scanning, collecting, editing, and moving that metadata around. So next part will be the actual data product creation. And for that, we will go back into Microsoft Purview. We switch over to the business catalog. So we click on data catalog. We go over to data domains and we see all of our business domains over here. And what we could do, for instance, and what is nice, if we click here on a business domain, I could control the mapping. So here on the right, you see data estate mapping. And what I've done, so I've selected here the gold layer. So, and this ensures only the data products will be created from that metadata that lives in that particular collection. And this is the gold layer then. So this is really, I think, also nice for enforcement. So in scenarios where you would like to and foster principles where only domains are allowed to, from one specific layer, are allowed to derive their data products, you could influence and you could configure that from Purview in here. So the actual data product creation itself, it's relatively straightforward. So here we go to data products. I could here select a new data product. So let's say we have the insights data. We can give it a short business description. I say this is a data set. We go next. Use cases for all kind of use cases, making things up here, create, and basically now we're done at least the business part. So we have provided it with contextual information, no data quality score yet, no health actions yet, because we did not link it to any actual physical data. However, we could do so if I click within data assets in here, find and select. This takes a bit of time. And yeah, I need to remind you, it takes a little bit of time also in the back. So I'm now going to click on this particular collection structure, but usually it should do that automatically, but it takes a little bit of time in the back. But by doing so, you see, we show all of the corresponding data assets. And what we could do now here, for instance, click on the gold. And when we add this, it will take a bit of time, but after a minute or so, it will show the gold set and the insights data set here as well. So basically now we are done at least with the data product creation part. What we could do next from here is we could contextualize it further by enriching this data product with additional business terms. So glossary terms, for instance, we could set up critical data elements. So say we have one logical element that sits in multiple of these data assets. For instance, we could use the critical data elements for that and then link it to all of the attributes within these different data sets. We could link it to the objective key results, also something we have discussed before. So let's wrap up. So we have done the demo of Microsoft Fabric as well Microsoft Purview. Sarat demonstrated the workspace in which the different layers of the medallion architecture sit and in which we also host the data itself, so as input for data product. And I've demoed the Microsoft Purview part, so scanning Fabric, the collection metadata, we move the metadata collection around, and we as well created the data product. To conclude, a data product, in my view, it's really a business concept. So it's meant for the business to quickly find information about data. That in itself also carries information about the physical data. But it's not just the physical data in itself. So that's unlike one of the definitions we discussed before. It's way more. So you could contextualize it with business terms, information about data quality, the objective key results. For instance, we talked about so linking it to your data strategy, critical data elements. So it's a way more than that. So it's unlike that technical viewpoint I mainly see where it's the combination of infrastructure, metadata, code, and data. No, here I see it's way more a business concept, allowing users to intuitively find information which they can use at their fingertips for creating new use cases, for instance. I hope you like this part, and we would wish to see you back next time. Thank you very much for watching.